There we go. Yeah, so Aaron, as he said, is the farm manager here at O'Brien Farm. He's and it's a 31-acre heritage farm, learning center, and new entrant farm incubator located here, obviously in the city of St. John's. They focus on the development of small, economically efficient farms, preserving Irish Newfoundland history and culture, and education programs through partnerships with local facilitators and a forest school initiative. Previously, Aaron was the executive director of the Mississippi Agriculture and Forestry Museum and the agribusiness coordinator for the Mississippi Department of Agriculture, where he managed the statewide farm-to-school produce purchasing program with the Department of Education. His education in agricultural economics and environmental studies, and has published research on labor economics in the American blueberry industry. He spent 2 years as a U.S. Peace Corps volunteer working as an agricultural extension agent in the Fouta region of Senegal. In between his 2 academic degrees, he was a kayak guide in San Francisco, a bicycle guide in Paris, a greenhouse grower in Mississippi, and general roustabout in South America. He and his wife, Catherine, have 2 girls, Isla and Phoebe, and love cuddling with their puppy. All right. Thanks. Please welcome Aaron.
Right. Thank you, Mark. It's the worst part of any presentation is when they like introduce you, I find. So um I'm taking like a bit of a different perspective here from Viviana. Obviously, Viviana was talking about community composting, municipalities, what they're doing in there. Mine's a lot more specific to farms, right? And farms and farmings, and certainly like my experience here, doing it on O'Brien Farm, some of the other stuff we've talked about. But and also Viviana had a really great presentation. I'm going to warn you right now. Mine's mostly words and a couple pictures, words and a couple pictures. So these are the 3 O'Brien brothers. This is a 4th generation land grant farm here that we're on, and that's what I work on. And the fellow in the middle is inspiration to a lot of the stuff we did here and continue to do. So these old guys here also were heavily involved in composting and waste management, things like that, in one way or another. So we're not talking about anything really new here. What are we talking about? Exploded massive stars and exploded white dwarfs. That's exactly what we're talking about. Also known as, does anyone know? What? Massive stars exploding in outer space, white dwarfs exploding in outer space. Does anyone know what that turns into? Nope. Close. We're getting there before it turns into that. Carbon. Carbon, yes, what we're all made out of, right? Carbon. So, and eventually that's the decomposition of biological materials into elements that are beneficial to plant life. Compost, right? The stuff we're talking about here. But it's all based on carbon. I was looking this up earlier because I was just kind of wondering about it. I've like, you hear about it in your bones, you hear about it in humans and all that kind of stuff, things that we're made out of. Does anyone know what a leaf is comprised of in general? Just any kind of leaf. What's that? So in terms of elements, what are we talking about? Like the most fundamental elements we've got. Carbon, do you know how much? Anyone have any ideas? Nope, not 90%. So it would be if you took out the water weight, it would be. So about 45 to 48% is carbon. About half of it, 50% is water, right? Generally, like any living thing, just like us, we're mostly just bags of water with some other organs and stuff in it. Living things, so you got about half of it's water, 45 to 48% is carbon. That means that that very small percentage is all the other things that are made out of in life, right? So nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all sorts of other micronutrients, microelements, all those other types of things, right? So we are dealing, the vast majority of it is just carbon. All the stuff's made out of carbon. It turns into a million different things. Again, can turn into plants, can turn into people, can turn into soil. It's mostly just pieces of carbon though. However, we know more about our solar system and even probably more about deep space at this point than we do what's underneath our feet. If you wanted to like name, if you were really like a biologist who wanted to go out there and be like, I want a whole bunch of things named after myself, I would suggest getting into soil science because there are so many bacteria that are unknown to us, unknown to scientists, unknown to the best, again, researchers and things like that, that are right underneath our feet right now that we don't know about. Again, we know more about the ocean, more about deep space than we do our own soil, right? We're really on the forefront of it right now, and there's continual research. And I think a lot of that is well, there's a number of reasons, but it's been overlooked for so many years, and certainly like in modern science. And I think we're starting to kind of peel that back a little bit and really recognize like how important those ecosystems are and what they mean. All right. I'm just throwing, like I said, I'm just throwing in slides because sometimes we need other things to look at. So we run a farming program here. We run two farm incubation programs. One of them is our Newfound Farmers program, and then the other one is our Gateway Gardens program. So what we try and do is just help people scale up their businesses, right? Develop business structures, production plans, cash flow, marketing plans, customer base, and then work through it while they're here on the farm with the goal of eventually working off the farm, right? Scaling to their own sole proprietorships, but it is very much a agribusiness development program. So this is one of our farmers here. This is Isaac with one of his cute goats, and he runs Atlantic Goats. So why is this important for a farm, right? Like what specifically are we doing with composting or any of this material that is important for the farm? And really what it is that the elements, all right, so I don't have to look backwards here. It's the elements that are released in that decomposition process, right? So are important for the growth of plants. At the end of the day, that's the majority of what it is that during this decomposition process, you're releasing plant nutrients, and those are important for improved yields or improved plant growth, right? And if you're improving your yields or you're improving the actual growth of your plant, chances are you're going to sell more or sell better product, or your land base is going to feel better, look better, be healthier, right? So again, as farmers, we have to keep it in our minds. Our goal is to grow things and sell things. At the end of the day, it's to try and make a business out of what we're doing. Alex, Ian, like you guys know this, it's about trying to continue to put money in the bank because at running a farm, it goes out real quick. So that is what we're doing, right? We're just trying to make sure that decomposition process is providing for our soils. You can provide for your soils in other ways. You can go down to East Chem and go get a bunch of bags of ammonium nitrate or ammonium sulfate, micronutrients, macronutrients. You can dump it all on if you want. There are other ways to get elements in your soil. It's expensive. There's price variability with it. There's externalities, or environmentally, there's externalities for you as a farmer, right? You still got to drive over there, go haul it, go get it, go through there's regulatory burdens associated with it. You can kill your soil, the biology in your soil just as quickly as you can improve your plant life in it, right? So this is a different way to do it. I try not to say better, worse, or anything like that. This is certainly just a different way to do it. This is the way that we do it on our farm. Certainly promote this way of doing it. You got to feed the soil. The soil ends up breaking down the elements that the plants can take up, right? That's it. That decomposition process releases all those macronutrients and micronutrients that the plant can take up. So, what are the benefits of this material for the farm? Number one, you've got improved soil nutrients, right? So in that decomposition process, the biology that's in the soil, a lot of the stuff that we don't know about, but we're talking mostly about like bacteria, some funguses, different things that are taking that leaf and they're pulling it all apart, taking all these different things and pulling it all apart. They're releasing all sorts of macronutrients and micronutrients. So you're looking at certainly your NPK, right? Lots of nitrogen, certainly You need to try and get as much nitrogen as you can, especially if you're growing anything green, but you also need your phosphorus, you need your potassiums, you need a lot of micronutrients too. Micronutrients are one of those things that are actually difficult to buy in a bag. So, and certainly release them. You can sometimes buy them in a bag, but they're going to be tied up in that bag for who knows however long, right? Because it takes those bacteria, those funguses, sometimes those macroorganisms as well, like worms and things like that, to break this stuff down. So it's not like it's just available for plants to take up, right? You have to unleash it, basically. You have to have the chemical processes to unleash this, right? So in that compost decomposition process, that's what you're doing. You're starting to unleash all these elements that plants can take up. So again, you're kind of doing it offsite with the intention that you're going to bring it onto your farm and put it into the soil that already exists, right? So so that's one thing. You're improving your macronutrients, your micronutrients. You're improving those microorganisms because you can kill bacteria. You can kill worms. You can kill all sorts of other soil-borne insects. You can poison them, right? It's probably the easiest way to do it. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's what pesticides are. You can choke them to death. You can not feed them and they'll die. Um, you can drown them, right? There's a lot of different ways that those living organisms as well can die. So knowing that they're the thing that's in there that's releasing all these elements that your plants want to take up, I wouldn't suggest doing that. I think you want to try and keep those as healthy as possible and probably grow that ecosystem, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a soil ecosystem. You've got all these different things working together. And that's where a lot of the unknown parts about soil sciences, right? It's how it all works together. Funguses are one of those that more and more is kind of the same thing, right? They're learning about funguses, how they work, what they do, how they kind of work together, communicate. Has anyone seen the funguses like playing the piano yet? Have they seen the neural Instagram thing? But like, it's pretty neat. But again, like that's one of those things. Funguses are amazing just about how quickly they break down a lot of this carbon material, right? It's really impressive, especially around here. You go take a walk in the woods and you see a decomposing tree, right? Something that is going to become some version of soil fairly quickly. It's because there's tons and tons of funguses in there. There's a lot of macroorganisms as well, pill bugs, or sow bugs, or carpenters, and things like centipedes, all sorts of stuff that you'll also find that will just go in there and eat them. But you'd be shocked at how quickly a lot of those funguses just get in there and break it all apart, right? Trying to make food for themselves, which then kind of creates that soil. Uh, this is Julie. She's one of our farmers as well in her greenhouse there. All right. Another one is biomass. Biomass is really important, right? Because one thing that you do when you're farming is that you end up losing soil every single year. If you're just sitting there pulling plants out of the ground, soil is going to come with you. Those plants, all that biomass that may be under the ground, a lot of it will move up into that plant. So you're taking that out. You're taking out a lot of those elements. So compost in and of itself is just producing biomass that you can put back in, right? So physical space, physical soil space that roots live in and roots grow in. It's incredibly important. So that addition for root space, right? And everyone that has, tried to put a shovel in the ground here understands how important having as much biomass as possible, or how important it is. The more that you can take that shovel and go deeper in the soil means that those roots can do the same thing, right? If you're sitting there and you're just hitting rocks, I've never seen a single plant that grows just in rocks. Certainly not something that we're going to end up as farmers trying to get something that's leafy or a root or a fruit or, a stem that I can go, or Tavish can go and try and sell at the store to the restaurants or farmers markets, right? We need to try and make sure that those roots push out very, very quickly, that they're healthy, and that they can take up as many of the nutrients, the macro and micronutrients that are available so they can, again, produce all that stuff. Another big benefit for using compost here on the farm is water retention. So I think this last summer was a great example of that. So for us here on the farm, being able to like inheriting a farm that had like a lot of grass and a lot of forage and a lot of animals on it over the years, and then taking that and taking our composting systems and just continually adding to it, we've managed a tremendous amount of water retention. So you guys know like the three soil typologies that exist, right? You got sand, you got clay, and you got loam, right? Kind of in there. So loam is the one that generally holds most water. Compost holds way more water than loam, right? So clayish soils hold a lot of water, but plants can't get into it. It just holds it too tight, right? Sand doesn't hold a whole lot of water at all. So if you've ever been to like Idaho or some of those areas where they grow lots of carrots and lots of onions and things, right? They'll grow, it's like sand. They just grow in sand, but you better irrigate it. I mean, there's sprinklers going on all the time because all that water will just filter right through the sand. When you think about going to the beach or something, right? You can pour water on the sand on the beach. By the end, in an hour, it will be dry. So it'll be the same situation. You can grow plants in sand. The roots will go down really, really fast, but does not retain water. So loam will kind of retain the majority of the water, but compost in and of itself will retain way more water. It's also super spongy, right? So it soaks up water and slowly releases it, which is, again, a huge benefit growing lots of different types of plants. And then having available water for the fine roots and the root hairs, right? So most of the plants that we grow, like fruit trees or some fruit trees, not all, but a lot of them, they'll have a tap root, one or two big, huge roots. And they'll take up water through those. But plants will take up a lot more water through those little tiny capillary roots or those fine roots or the tiny little hairs that are on those roots. Like that's where they're taking up water, right? And doing so you have to be able to, that plant has to be able to access that water that's in there. So having nice spongy material to slowly take that up is really important. And then the other benefit of compost for your farm is material management, right? So again, we are in an industry and there's going to be byproducts of what we do. So when here on our farm, we have vegetables, we've got like a variety of different kind of ag industries. We've got animals, right? So we're able to take all of our unsellable plant material and deal with it. We're able to take a lot of our forest material, right? Blow down. Um, again, we just went through a bad fire season. It was important for us to kind of like walk into our woods and kind of see how much material is in there that's dried out and trying to figure out something that we can do with it, right? Livestock and poultry material. So we don't have any chickens anymore, but we run about 25 to 30 goats up on our farm here. So what do we do with that? The byproduct of those animals, right? Where is it going to go? Other off-farm material, like Viviana was saying, we have my maintenance manager here, Phil. He has a composting program. He goes and picks up compost or picks up green waste around town and then brings it to the farm, right? We also have a rental venue here, so we do our best to try and get in what works for us in our program. But as Viviana knows, this is a challenge. It's an educational challenge to do it. So, but being able to take all of that on a farm and have a spot to put it and not have to drive it off somewhere or put it just in a dumpster month after month and get it hauled away because that's an expense. Being able to manage it on site is really it's a financial benefit to the farm, which is important. All right, there's Jeremy. He runs McNiven's Fresh Produce. All right, so how do we process our material here on the farm? So we've got three three different types of processing facilities here. Um, so we use windrows. So just basically big long piles that are turned over, right? And um, and we'll go see some of this stuff up there. There's actually, and there's one more that I want to put on here that I'll tell you about that we don't have right now, but I want to build. We also have an aerated static pile system. So an aerated static pile system is what's oftentimes used. I've seen it more on like horse farms, smaller like cattle operations, dairy operations, and things like that. But basically, like I said, one of the ways that you can kill all the microorganisms in your soil is by drowning them. We have a lot of water in Newfoundland, right? We have a lot of rain. So if you just have a big pile out there and that water doesn't have anywhere to go, a lot of those bacteria will die. When those bacteria start dying, that's when you get a really bad smell, right? It's just decomposition, like decomposing animal life in a lot of ways. So that's where you get that bad smell. You also stop being able to actually break down any of that plant material that is going to really be the big benefit for the plants that you want to grow. So an aerated static pile system basically has pushed air that goes up and goes into your piles, right? So you have to use a compressed or pushed air to get it up in there. So you're constantly feeding those bacteria and making sure that that pile never goes anaerobic. We also have a compost tumbler. So like what Viviana had there in her presentation, we have a version of that. What she has is much preferable to what we have. Mine probably cost 25 times as much as hers. So appropriate technology is really, really important, right? The more things can do also means the more things can break. And if you've got what we ended up, and we didn't buy it, it was given to us, and I kind of see why, but a system that requires motors and gears and heating elements and insulation and all these types of things don't always do well when you're working with heavy material, when we were working with material at like different weights and different sizes, when you live in an environment like Newfoundland in which you've got, 4 seasons in one day sometimes, a lot of moisture, a lot of salt in the air, so things rust. So again, I wouldn't say one's better than the other. I think it's just understanding what's appropriate and what's going to work well for you. Another one that I'm probably end up building over the next, or putting together this next month is Johnson Sioux composting systems. Really, really simple, super simple. A pallet, some hardware cloth or some fencing, a couple pipes with some holes in it, and just keep filling them up, right? Greens and browns, greens and browns, greens and browns. Fill them up. Make sure that you keep the water to it every once in a while. If it starts really drying out, chances here in Newfoundland, it might be the opposite. So if it's just raining and raining and raining, you may want to throw a tarp up over it. But having a couple of those, again, something that is movable, you can get it in and out, and you don't even necessarily need a tractor to empty it out. Just unhook your wire, let it out, throw it in some wheelbarrows, move it around. Again, all have their advantages and disadvantages. So going to challenges, right? This is one of the biggest ones. What are our biggest challenges? So equipment and infrastructure. Again, I think having appropriate equipment is vitally important, right? So, and it takes you a while to figure out what works and what doesn't. So when we go look at our stuff, I'll tell you some stuff that we've learned over the years that's been super helpful. And we've learned it just by failing mostly. And advice, and a lot of advice from other people, but you got to kind of test it out yourself and see what works with what you're doing. Infrastructure, I think, is really important. So one of the slides that Viviana had that really struck me was the one in the snow, where you're having to dig out to get to where you're at, right? That's a real challenge here. Again, where I'm from California in the States. Like we never had to deal with that ever in our lives. It's big composting programs. You can kind of see why, like, okay, well, if you're in a spot in which there's never snow, it barely rains, like probably a heck of a lot easier to to have a composting program than somewhere where you've got, again, you potentially have to dig out 3 feet of snow just to get to your piles, right? So, so again, having both the right like equipment to get to where you need to go to do what you need to do, but also having the infrastructure available to get there is really, really important, right? Which also kind of goes to where you're going to site stuff, making sure things are, again, probably not too close to the road, so everyone's going to see it. But not so far on the back of your property that you're going to need to spend, 4 or 5 hours plowing just to get to your compost pile so you can, throw a handful of bags away. Public interaction, that's a big one. Again, talk about being close to the road, right? Um, that's just one of those challenges. I'm sure we'll all probably have some conversations there going forward. And then pest management, as you were talking about, right? Pest management, certainly rats, but you also have a variety of birds. You can get tons of crows on it, pigeons, mice, shrews around there, ways to deal with that. So, oh, there's another one of our farmers. It's David Porter, his partner Heather Zerl, quite involved. They run Vinland Acres here on the farm. They just got a big piece of property out there in Bay Bulls as well that they're working on. So some of the solutions to those challenges that we had. So one is again, get the right equipment if you can, right? Again, if I could buy, you know, 10 of the tumblers that Viviana had, and instead of my one big one that basically the engineer that designed the whole thing, his first question when he saw it and saw that it was broken was like, why don't you have it in a building? It's like, well, no one told us that we need to put it in a building. So no wonder it's broken, right? I mean, these are the types of things like making sure that you have the right stuff. It's really important. Um, on that, on the public interaction side, I cannot stress enough to be honest about what you're doing, but be firm in your conviction to why it's important, right? I think that's really, really important. And that's important just all like throughout agriculture, with whatever you're doing. You're growing food so people can eat stuff. If they don't want to eat stuff, then yeah, you can have a conversation about whether or not it's good, bad, or indifferent. But last time I checked, every living person on planet Earth eats. Like they do. They eat 3 times a day, 365 days a year. They have over 1,000 meals every single year. Most of those meals are comprised of anywhere from 4 to 25 ingredients. All of those are pretty much coming from farms, right? The vast, vast majority of it. So what you guys are doing is important, and there is going to be byproduct of that. It is an industry. It's a big worldwide industry. It's the only way that all those 8 billion people are going to eat, and it's growing. Population's still growing on planet Earth. So being honest about what you're doing is vitally important, but being firm about that it is important to your general community, to the global community, that people are eating, and this is just a part of it. And then I also find trying to make sure that you use as much scientific language, industry language in discussing this. And there might be some debate on this, which I'm a-okay with, but I haven't used compost once, the word compost in my presentation here. Um, I, Sometimes it's a loaded word, right? Sometimes people don't understand it. Again, I made the mistake of saying green waste instead of compost, like while I was talking, right? Which there's a major distinction there. Compost is a finished product, right? Green waste is what your comes off the end of your cutting board. Whether or not animal products go into it. How do you deal with oils? Like we forget how much oil we consume as human beings in our, modern diets, right? It's not the healthiest thing by any means, but it is very much part of our modern diets. So like that's something that we're going to have to deal with in this. There's so many questions associated with all this. So if you can approach it from, again, that honest but firm way, And talking about it in industry language when you're talking with the general public, people that might be interested in it, um, I think is really, really important. Also, when it comes to just the way that like accidents with the general public. So probably one of the biggest ones is that our farm here is open to the public to like walk through, which is kind of rare. And I don't know if I'd suggest that if you were having a sole proprietorship, but it's been that case for a long time. And I didn't want to take that away to our local community. And we also have education programs here. Like there's reasons why we didn't try and put a fence around the whole thing and say like by invitation only, right? But if people are walking, that means they're going to be walking their dogs. And I can't tell you how many times people have said, like, oh, well, I was walking my dog up there and it like ate some, it was like walking by with some rotten orange or something in its mouth. And I was like, what's up with that? It's like, first off, you're on a farm. Second off, chances are you're probably let your dog off leash and he ran over to where all the compost is. So, so you got to not like stop doing that, right? So that's that kind of like honest but firm conversations that you have to have. Is just, how trying to inform the general public, like what your expectations of trying to run a business is going to be for the people that might use it, right? Safety, making sure that they're doing things the right way, that they're not putting themselves in some kind of danger in a weird position or something like that. I mean, and then having a robust pest control program. And this is a challenging one, right? So for us here at the farm, that means we set traps and we catch rats, and then we kill those rats, right? My maintenance manager has a dog that catches rats, and then they kill those rats. Like we kill rats here. I found a big old rat nest the other day. My one of the farmer Julie that was up there, she lost like a huge row of fingerling potatoes, right? A couple hundred, probably, I don't know, maybe close to $1,000 at the end of the day worth of really nice fingerling potatoes. Rats just got in, they dug little burrows, went and eat them or take them and go back to their little burrows, right? The little burrow was an area where she just didn't have time to take her weed eater, take her string trimmer, and just cut it down. So those rats had a super highway going through just from where their little burrow was that went out and went down her rows. And again, just kept going underneath, 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 right? Once you start like this time of year where you start seeing a lot of the foliage falling off and the plants are kind of dying back and stuff like that, you can really see it. But it's really hard when everything's, hip high. When you got these big lush fields and stuff like that, it's really difficult to see. And certainly the same thing where those rat burrows were. And she told me about it. She was really sad. I went over there and I took a pitchfork and I just crushed those rat burrows with that pitchfork, right? It's just it is what it is. You have to have a robust pest control program. And I will like for us here on the farm, it's very much part of managing the farm. I don't like it. I don't like killing animals, but I'm also not too keen on like rat burrows that are about yay big that are going to be yeah, I mean yeah, and they do. They breed about every 30 days if you let them, right? So
You can't just let it sit. It has to be chilled.
yep.
And another thing, rats. I don't have hard with rats, etc. So I just started feathers for rats.
Yep.
So
Yep. That's excellent. And that's exactly part of it too. So that's something that we have a number of hawks that are here. We also have some owls that are here. And anything that you can do to be proactive in that sense is important too, right? So ecosystem management is really, really important. So it's that kind of mix of making sure that you're, again, using the right materials, you're doing your best to use the right materials, using the right equipment and actually using it, which means that you got to get in there and you got to turn your compost as much as possible. Again, there's a lot of muscle that goes into it, whether that's tractor muscle or physical muscle or whatever. It's not easy. It's heavy stuff. And then trying to be proactive. And if you can't be proactive all the time, then you got to be reactive. And again, that might just mean going in there with a pitchfork or a dog or whatever it is and killing some rats. So don't do that with seagulls. It's bad luck. Yeah. Yeah, you'll be end up in some trouble there. All right. Uh, Food insecurity is partially caused by loss of farmers and farms. We know the statistics here. Newfoundland's lost 90% of its farms since 1951. We only have a 2 to 3 day supply of fresh produce. While this is from a year and a half ago, so I bet you it's even higher now. There's 23% of households in Newfoundland report being food insecure. Yeah, we're out of fresh food. Yep. So there's always bags of rice, right? Just go back to either rice and beans. These are local problems with global implications. Thank you.